guys, it's Aoife from Words of Clover and I'm here with a book review today. So I wanted to do a book review of In Other Lands by Rees Brennan. This is a book that I read this month in August and it's a book that I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed. I haven't enjoyed a book as much as I did this one in such a long time, so I just had to talk about it in a singular review, and that is what I'm going to do now. This review will be spoiler free. I'm just going to talk about some of the points I really loved about this book and some of the reasons why I think you guys should check it out as well, because I think this is definitely a completely underrated, fantastic read, and I think so many people on BookTube would absolutely love this book and rave about it if they picked it up and read it as well. So in Other Lands, we are following a young boy called Elliot. He is 13 years old when we first meet him, and he lives in the UK, and he has kind of just a normal upbringing. He is raised by a single father. He doesn't really get on with his dad that much, and he doesn't have a lot of friends, and he's a little bit of a prickly personality, to say the least. But one day when he's in school, he goes on a field trip with his teacher and he manages to see this wall that for some reason no one else can see in his class. And it turns out that Elliot has the ability to walk like beyond this wall and go somewhere called the Other Lands, which is basically like a magical world full of elves and different creatures, mermaids, much to Elliot's absolute delight because he loves mermaids. So there are mermaids in this world, there are harpies, there are trolls. So he ends up going to school in this place called the Other Lands, and he's in a place called the Border Camps, and he goes to learn about council training. So he's not really much of a physical fighter. He doesn't really enjoy fighting. He's more of a pacifist. So he goes into council training to learn all about the lore of this land, all about the rules and regulations, and to help write up treaties. So each chapter of this book is very long. It basically follows 1 year in Elliot's life and 1 year in his education in the Borderlands. We follow the type of things he learns and the type of creatures he meets, the friends he makes, and the different wars that are almost going on pretty much every single year, and the wars the humans in the Other Lands are fighting, and why this border control and why the warriors are needed, and also why people like Elliot, who are able to write the treaties and know the rules and regulations of the land, why they are actually really needed as well. So there's just so many things to love about this book. One thing I should say first is Rees Brennan, who wrote this book. She's an Irish author and she happens to be one of my favourite authors. I have had In Other Lands on my shelf for quite a long time, basically since it came out in 2017, and I just haven't picked it up yet, even though I always knew I would really love it. It was one of those books that just always stared at me from my shelf. It was on countless TBRs and I just never picked it up. I always knew I was going to enjoy this book because I always enjoy Rees Brennan's writing. She's a really humorous, lovely way of writing. There's a really natural flow to her writing, and her characters, the characters she creates in all of her books, I always get on with them really, really well. They always gel really, really well with my own personality, I guess, and just the things I love in characters. They're always smart, a little bit stubborn, a little bit quirky, and they're really good with these one-liners that will just make you laugh, and they're quite adventurous as well, and they will put themselves out there to save the people that they love, which I always enjoy in books. So this book has a lot of key classic fantasy tropes that I think a lot of people really love. As I said, you get that trope of just an ordinary young boy who finds out that he has this kind of ability to be able to travel into this fantasy land, a land that not many other people can see, enter a world that's completely different to the one he grew up in, but one that he kind of dreamt about for a really long time, the one that he always hoped in the back of his mind would exist. Very much like I think a lot of us readers, we would always love some sort of magical land to actually exist and to be able to go there. This book as well, Elliot does end up becoming friends with a couple of people. He becomes friends with a female elf called Serene Heart in the Chaos of Battle, Serene for short, and then he also becomes kind of friends with this boy called Luke. And throughout the book, as I said, because we're following every chapter is a year in Elliot's life up until he turns 17, there tends to be a lot of ups and downs within the Other Lands. There's a lot of land being taken by different species, and the humans have to try and they side with different people at different times, different species at different times for different wars, and there's some bigger wars going on in some years, some smaller things in other years where that can be calmed down, but there's always something going on in every year of Elliot's schooling that's really exciting for us as readers to follow. One of the things I absolutely love about this book is just how funny it is. As I said before, Rees Brennan has just a wonderful way of writing. She has a really naturally humorous tone in her writing. If you've read any of her other books, you would probably know that, but she also has written a couple couple of the novella series in Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter books, because they're really good friends, and you'll probably recognise, if you like the humour in some of the books that she has written with Cassandra Clare, you would definitely enjoy the humour that is in this book. And one of the things that makes this book just so funny is Elliot himself. Now, I 100% understand from reading some other people's reviews, they just could not stand Elliot. He is a very prickly character, and you will either probably love him or hate him. He's very sarcastic, he's very, very obnoxious, he's very clever, and he knows he's very clever, and he uses that to his advantage a lot of the time. And he often uses his knowledge and how clever he is in a sarcastic way, where he can sometimes put down the other people around him, but it's never really in a mean-spirited way. It's always, for me, it was always kind of in this joke way, and it's sometimes, I think, Elliot's own kind of shield and his own type of armour that he kind of uses his humour to deflect from possibly having other people hurt him. So I really, really loved Elliot, and I loved just the things he would come out with, how he would respond to people, and like the things other people would say to him. People would try and make him feel bad about himself, or try and start something with him, and he'd just quip back something really clever, really funny, and it would absolutely make me laugh out loud. Like, I laughed so many times reading this book, and I felt like I was smiling the entire time while I was reading it, which is just the best feeling ever with the book. I just really, really loved my reading experience of it. One of the other things that makes this book really, really funny is because one of Elliot's best friends is an elf, and in this world, elvish custom is very, very different when it comes to gender norms from humans. Elves, like, they're, I guess, the superior gender would be females. They are the ones that are warriors, they are the breadwinners of the house, and they're thought to be the tougher sex, and the males are thought to be very, gentle, and they need to be kind of coddled, and they need to be looked after, and they only really care about like things around raising a family and having children, and they're very emotional. They're very emotional, and the female elves have to kind of take care of them, and there's just a lot of really, really funny things that Serene will come out with when she's with Elliot and with other humans that is so contradictory to everything as humans and as the gender norms that we grow up with, how we feel about things. So Serene will say something, and you realise that things are so different, but it also makes you think about how ridiculous gender norms are as well. There was also a whole kind of scene at one point in this around kind of like a free the nipple moment for Serene, who obviously would never be ashamed of her body, and it was just really, really funny, and I really loved how that was thrown in. I really kind of loved the points that it made as well. What I love about this book is that it's really, really queer. So in terms of sexual preference in this book, loads of characters are gay, they're bisexual. Elliot himself is bisexual, and he has relationships with both men and women in this book. And it's never a problem. People are always pretty much completely fine with whoever people want to date. Now, there isn't as much in terms of exploration around gender identity in this book, but there definitely is when it comes to sexual preferences. One of the only things I didn't like about this book at one point was I did think that Elliot started having sex a little bit too young, just for me. I think he had sex when he was 15 for the first time in the book, and I just thought that was maybe a year or two young for that. And then also he does have a relationship when he's just about to turn 16 with a man who is, I think, 20 or 21, which I do think is quite a large age gap, and that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable as well. But other than that, the relationships in this book, I really loved them. I really loved the exploration around dating whoever you wanted to and having feelings whoever you wanted to, and how that was all expressed by different characters in the book all the time. The friendship in this book between Elliot, Serene and Luke is also one of my favourite friendships in books of all time. They are my new golden trio. I just loved how they were always together. I loved how they always supported each other and how they loved each other, and it was just it was so wonderful reading about them all the time. And just, even though there were things that complicated things sometimes between them, they always came out better on the other side, and I just loved reading about them so much. So if you're looking for a really lovely friendship group as well, and a golden trio to follow, I would definitely say to try In Other Lands, because it definitely has it all. So I cannot rave about this book enough. I just absolutely loved it. It was 5 out of 5 stars for me. As I said, I don't think I stopped smiling from the beginning to end of this book. I just always wanted to be picking it up. I say it won't be very long before I pick this up for a reread, because it feels like a book that will be a complete comfort read for me now. It'll be one that I will read if I ever just want to smile and laugh and be happy and just feel feel nice. This is definitely a book I'll be picking up, so please check out In Other Lands. I definitely think it'll be worth it because I just absolutely loved it so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know if you've read In Other Lands, what you guys think of it, or if maybe I've convinced you to give it a go. I would definitely love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.